A lesson in living for today. Once upon a time, in a small village about half a mile from the nearest river, there lived a 57-year-old merchant named Thomas. He worked tirelessly from dawn until dusk, determined to earn as much money as possible. Thomas wanted to make sure that his children, and even their children, would never go hungry. He owned a modest farmhouse spread over 10 acres, where he kept a few chickens and goats. Life had been kind to him, yet despite all his hard work and achievements, he remained anxious about the future. Thomas had 2 grown children in their early 20s, and he dreamed of providing for them far beyond his own lifetime. One day, Thomas called his trusted accountant, a 35-year-old named Daniel, into his study. The study was a small room lined with shelves of account books and ledgers, all meticulously updated. With a serious expression, Thomas said, "Daniel, I want you to find out precisely how much money I have. Then calculate how long that money will sustain my family, assuming we keep living the way we do now." Daniel spent several days poring over receipts, tallying expenditures, and assessing the merchant's various sources of income. He scrutinized every penny and cross-referenced shipping invoices to ensure accurate estimates. Finally, Daniel returned to Thomas with his findings. "Sir," Daniel began, gently clearing his throat, "based on your current spending, even if you stopped earning any money starting today, your wealth would comfortably feed you and your immediate family for the next 2 generations." At first, Thomas felt relieved. But then, his mind began racing, and worry cast a dark cloud over his thoughts. "What do you mean only 2 generations?" he asked, his voice tinged with alarm. "What about the 3rd and 4th generation? How will they eat? How will they survive?" From that day forward, Thomas couldn't shake off his anxiety. The idea that his wealth might not stretch beyond his grandchildren's children weighed heavily on him. He lost his appetite and began having sleepless nights. His constant state of worry slowly took a toll on his health. Over time, he developed aches and pains that no medicine seemed to cure. Local doctors tried various treatments, but his condition did not improve. One day, an old friend named George, who was 55 years old and had known Thomas since childhood, came to visit. George immediately noticed that Thomas appeared pale and listless. Pulling up a chair beside Thomas's bed, George asked gently, "My friend, you seem deeply troubled. Please tell me what's on your mind. Maybe talking about it will help." Thomas sighed, looking at the ceiling as though searching for answers. "I've worked so hard all my life, and yet I'm worried it's still not enough," he confessed. "Daniel told me that my wealth can feed 2 generations, but what about the 3rd or even the 4th? It keeps me awake at night. I'm terrified that my great-grandchildren might go hungry." George leaned forward, his brow furrowed in concern. After a moment's reflection, he spoke quietly. "Thomas, I understand your fears. However, there's a very wise monk named Brother Raymond who recently arrived in our town. He's staying at the old temple on the far side of the village, about a mile from here. People say he gives marvelous guidance to those who are troubled. If you bring him a meal one morning, I believe you'll find the answers you seek." Although Thomas was somewhat skeptical, his desperation outweighed his doubts. Early the next day, Thomas rose at dawn. The weather was a cool 58 degrees Celsius, and he wrapped himself in a warm cloak before heading out. He packed a generous basket of food, freshly baked bread, roasted vegetables, and a small container of steaming soup, and walked the mile-long path to the temple. The sky was tinged pink and orange as the sun slowly climbed over the horizon. Thomas's steps felt lighter with each moment, fueled by hope that this monk might ease his incessant worries. When Thomas arrived, Brother Raymond greeted him with a warm smile. The monk was in his early 60s, dressed in simple robes and surrounded by a few disciples who looked similarly serene. "Welcome, my friend," Brother Raymond said, bowing respectfully. "What brings you here on this fine morning?" Thomas respectfully returned the bow and presented the basket of food. "I heard you accept meals from kind visitors, and I've come to offer breakfast for you and your disciples," he explained. Before Brother Raymond could respond, one of the younger disciples, a man named Lucas, stepped forward. "Master," Lucas said, addressing the monk, "someone else already brought us our daily meal. According to our tradition, we accept only 1 meal each day, usually the first offered in the morning." Brother Raymond turned to Thomas with an apologetic look. "My friend, I'm sorry, but we cannot accept your food. Another generous visitor arrived earlier, and we have already taken our one meal for today. It is part of our rule. We accept only one meal, and once it has been received, we cannot take another. This ensures we do not grow attached to earthly comforts." Disappointed but still determined to help, Thomas said, "In that case, keep it for tomorrow. That way you won't have to worry about finding food then. I can always bring you fresh provisions the following day as well." Brother Raymond smiled kindly and shook his head. "We do not keep any food for tomorrow. We live in the present and trust that tomorrow's meal will also be provided when the time comes. We don't burden ourselves with concerns about the future." Thomas's eyes widened in surprise. He had never heard anyone speak so casually about having no plan for the next day's meals. "But Brother Raymond, what if no one brings you food tomorrow? Do you not fear going hungry?" The monk's smile deepened. "We believe that the same power, God, fate, or the universe, that has given us food today will also provide for us tomorrow. And my friend, who can say that tomorrow will even come? Life is unpredictable. We prefer to focus our energy on doing good and living each moment fully rather than fretting over what might happen next." Thomas bowed respectfully and left the temple in a contemplative mood. As he walked the mile back to his home, he couldn't help but marvel at the monk's words. Brother Raymond doesn't worry about tomorrow at all, Thomas thought. He doesn't even store food for the next day. Meanwhile, I'm obsessing over how my great-grandchildren will eat decades from now. Reflecting on this, Thomas realized that all his fretting about tomorrow was making today a miserable experience. He was surrounded by comfort, family, and enough resources to live well, but his obsession with the distant future had robbed him of any joy in the present. From that day on, Thomas decided to live more fully in the moment. He still managed his finances wisely, but he no longer let the fear of tomorrow's uncertainties steal his peace. Gradually, his health improved, and the smiles returned to his face. He focused on spending time with his children and teaching them the value of both hard work and gratitude. Whenever he felt his old worries creeping in, he remembered Brother Raymond's calm assurance. If today's meal is provided, tomorrow's will be as well. The moral of the story: in our own lives, we often get so tangled up in concerns about the future that we forget to appreciate the blessings we have right here and now. Just like Thomas, we spend countless hours worrying about what our finances will look like 5, 10, or even 30 years from now. We ask ourselves whether we'll meet all our responsibilities and whether our children will grow up safely and successfully. Yet, every minute we devote to worrying is a minute stolen from the joy we could experience today. Look at the sparrows and other little birds hopping on the sidewalks. They have no idea what they will do in the next moment or where their next meal will come from. Yet they still sing and go about their day without fear. By embracing the present, truly living from one moment to the next, we open our hearts to happiness, contentment, and peace of mind. Remember that trusting in the future doesn't mean ignoring common sense or refusing to plan. It means doing our best while recognizing that there are aspects of tomorrow we cannot control. As Brother Raymond wisely reminded Thomas, worrying does not take away tomorrow's troubles. It only takes away today's peace. If you want a happier life, trust that tomorrow can still be bright and prosperous, but let yourself experience the richness of today. Embrace each sunrise as a fresh gift, and never forget that living in the present is the surest way to find lasting joy.